One of the most contentious aspects of Halloween in recent years, especially with the release of the 2018 trilogy, is the sibling relationship between Michael Myers and Laurie Strode. I have wondered, as someone who only really got into the series in 2020, if this is such a big deal and if it's something that merited making an entire trilogy of movies off the premise of removing it by retconning Halloween 2 to no longer be canon. And to trace the origins of this issue, we have to go back to Halloween 2, but we specifically have to go back to the person that wrote it, John Carpenter. Now, in recent years, Carpenter has been, and not even recent years, but in the years following H2, Carpenter, the writer of the movie, has insulted it, belittled it, talked trash about it. Even he has moved away from it being a good idea to have Laurie and Michael, be revealed to be siblings. But I, as someone who wants to write, understands why he thought at the time it was a good idea. Anytime you make a sequel to a movie, there's always this inclination to reveal something that wouldn't have been previously known. For example, in Spider-Man 3, we find out that Uncle Ben's killer is not anyone that was in the first movie. And in Scream 3, we find out that one of the leads in that series has a sibling that never got alluded to or mentioned previously. But also, narratively, it makes sense for Michael to have a motive that can allow Loomis to pin down where he's going. Because if Loomis isn't aware that Michael and Laurie are siblings, he's not going to know to go to the hospital to have what ends up being the final confrontation in the film. Without the twist, it's harder to get him to stumble on him at the right time or to show up there before he can get to Laurie. But what I find so maddening about Carpenter's later pivot from, liking H2 and the plot twist in it, is that for someone who, again, really despises this movie, calls it an abomination, I believe it was, he really got into trying to make this the true second half of his beloved 1978 film. I mean, let's not forget when Halloween came out on TV and they needed extra scenes, Carpenter filmed portions with Loomis and Michael, and the part where you see that Michael wrote sister on the wall or wherever it was. So, this is when you think about those moments, and specifically him going back and inserting stuff into the first movie that ties it in even more to its sequel. It's just crazy how you can completely do a 180 on your own creation. But now that we've addressed the man who made the twist, and I guess lived to regret it, we should talk about the people who don't like it. They have a couple of different reasons, and I'll go through them. They claim that the twist demystifies Michael, which in turn makes him less scary. And again, on a surface level, I can see where they're coming from, although I've said before, Michael is one of the hardest characters to write for, pretty much in all of fiction, because it's always difficult to write things for a character that people have a problem with stuff being explained. Like, you have a hard time being able to just convey any kind of power system or the full extent of his abilities. It's just, he's not easy to write for those reasons. But if the issue is that the twist demystifies Michael, I would argue that if any information demystified Michael, it was us knowing his name, us seeing the first time that he killed someone, us knowing how long he was locked up for, who his doctor was, the fact that his home meant something to him, which is why he's sitting up in there when he first encounters Laurie. And all of this was conveyed in the first movie. Like, if you want to argue that us knowing that Michael and Laurie are brother and sister is this, this demystifying, I would say that us knowing where he lives, how long he's been locked up, the fact that he killed his older sister, this is all stuff that I think demystifies him way more than knowing that he has another sibling. But of course, nobody will draw issue with this, because to do that would mean to criticize the first movie for explaining too much, and we could never criticize, 1978 for anything. Now, another person said, and they actually wrote up in my comment section some years back, that knowing Michael, goes after his sister, or, later on his niece, makes him less scary, because as long as you don't live by her or, again, the daughter, you know that he's not likely to get you. And again, on a surface level, I can see where someone could make this argument, but in turn, we have to remember that in universe, plenty of characters, even if they're aware of Michael, they don't know the Laurie-Michael connection. Let's not forget, in H2O, Michael is not in Haddonfield. He travels to, the school that Laurie's teaching at, where no one who is there besides her son knows who she actually is. So all of these people who theoretically would be safe if they knew to get away from Carrie Tate don't know to get away from her, and by extension are completely blindsided when Michael shows up. And this is another one of those things where if you wanted to say, us knowing that he's after his sister or his niece is, makes him less scary because we know as long as we get away from them that we'll be okay. Well, hell, you could say the same thing about Haddonfield. Most of Michael's killings across the entire damn franchise all take place in the same city. So if you know that he's the Haddonfield boogeyman, and you as a character decide, all right, I'm going to leave Haddonfield, theoretically you would be a hell of a lot more likely to be safe than, his sister is here or his niece is here, I got to get out of here. Like, I think both fall under the same umbrella where, a character who knows either where he kills or who he's killing to get to, theoretically would be less likely to find him scary. But it's like, if you're in universe, are you really going to tell me that someone coming at you with a butcher knife and sneaking up from the shadows and who can bulldoze through police stations isn't scary? Now, I will confess, I ended up cheating when I made this video. I was originally going to try and see if I could find like old forum posts, people writing about Halloween in the early 2000s, mid 2010s, and see how many of them just sat there debating the merits of having the, twist of the sibling relationship in H2. But I will say, if you go and watch Halloween reviews before the 2018 trilogy came out, right? So reviews that were made any time between when YouTube first started and, that period of like, what was it, 9 years where there was no new Halloween movie between Rob Zombie's Halloween 2 and 2018. I will bet you that most of them will make no mention of, the sibling reveal was a bad idea. Oh, it ruined the series. Oh, it makes the character worse. And, I'm not even someone who's against keeping some stuff hidden, right? So I openly criticize H6 or Curse for the the reveal of the Druid curse and all the other stuff with symbols and just all of that in my view was unnecessary. But us knowing that he has a sister or that he wants to kill family members, like that stuff doesn't make him less scary to me, because look at all the innocent random people who get killed just by happenstance of being in his way. So in answering my own video's title, I don't think the sibling relationship is a big deal. The opposition to it seems to mostly come from people that just will criticize anything introduced after the first movie. And it's really sad because, H2 has a lot of things I like. I'm not going to reveal if I like it more than the first movie because that's going to make people's brains explode. But it's sad to think that this film with this really good atmosphere, music that I probably would say is on par, even better than the first movie, is left out of the newest continuity for what is essentially a handful of scenes where people either react to Michael and Laurie being related or Laurie flashbacks to seeing Michael at the at Smith's Grove, and what could be argued as just a narrative device to get Loomis to the location where Michael is so the movie can have its finale. It's a shame that just, every time somebody comes around, they always circle back to the first film and pick and have an issue with anything introduced afterward.